Welcome to Recapping with Cam. I'm Cam, and this podcast is for me. It's for me. You are also here, so hopefully you get something out of it as well. But the loose premise of it is, if something's happened in my life, or if I saw something on TV or in the flesh, and I feel like it's worth sharing, then this is the show where that will happen. So rub your hands together, look at your life partner, and mouth the words, "Here we go." Sometimes I think it's good to have achievable goals, like rather than something big and lofty, like, I'm gonna release 3 albums in the next month, then just have something more like, I'm going to get a coffee from a specific place. And that's the goal that I had for the last couple of weeks. It was get a coffee in the morning from the petrol station pretty close to my house, which is achievable, but it took me a week and a half. So my plan was, I think, every now and then I think it's okay to have a petrol station coffee. It tastes amazing and does a good job when you're on a road trip. But if you have that every day, then your body punishes you. I had 7-Eleven coffees every day for a while, I think maybe 2 months, and you just don't feel right when you do that too often. So think of petrol station coffees and 7-Eleven coffees as like a every now and then thing. I think it's kind of like having, the way you should treat having McDonald's. Like you can't do that every meal. Anyway, my goal had been, my recent goal was get a coffee from the Shell station on the corner of my street. And this morning, I just wait while the applause dies down. I did that. I achieved my goal. But it was a bit of a frustrating time waiting for my coffee, because there was a family that moved as a unit in front of me in the line. And what I mean by that is, it was a mum and a dad and 3 kids, 2 sons, 1 daughter, and they were kind of huddled in a blob, like they weren't used to being further, like they were all, if I had run my palms between their shoulders, I don't think there would have been a gap. So they, first of all, entered the petrol station as a clod of people. And at the moment, you still have to log in, like to say, hey, just in case I've got COVID, everyone else will get a text message. So you have to scan your phone at the doorway of everywhere that you go. They did that as a family, all like competing to get their phone in front of the QR code. So already I was like, I just want to achieve my goal. I just want to get that coffee. But they had all logged in finally. And then I didn't know they were all going there for coffee, but the whole family was there for a hot drink of some sort. And it's a petrol station where they don't have lots of different stations. Like I went to a 7-Eleven once in Melbourne. This is a riveting story. I went to a 7-Eleven in Melbourne once that had 4 stations. So rather than line up, there was just always enough for people to go use their own machine. Anyway, there was 1 machine in this petrol station, and the whole family stayed glued together and were having conversations. And you'd think that, okay, once they've made the person's drink who it is, like, here you go, daughter, that she would go hop in the car with that drink. Nah, just shoulder to shoulder, all talking. And the mum was telling them off, like, don't you be thinking you're going to be getting some food. I said we could come in here for hot drinks only. That felt like it took me 45 minutes to just stand and wait. And then when that blob of people who call themselves a family had departed, I pressed the button, and they'd used up all the resources inside the machine. So it just squirted out hot water into my cup. And that sucked. So I guess actually I gave you a false headline for that story, I didn't even achieve my goal. So if you want to rewind, go to the start and just imagine that I'd said, do you guys want to hear about me not achieving a really mediocre goal? Then that would be a more fitting explanation of that story. Another thing I've been doing, it wasn't a goal, just something I felt like, is yoga. And I'd been recommended yoga by a lot of friends, and I don't know why they thought that I'd like it or be good at it. Probably more that they thought it would be good for me rather than either of those things. But I didn't even mean to be doing yoga, actually. I downloaded the Nike, I think it's called NTC app, where you can press play. There's heaps of videos that you can watch of like a fit person in tight clothing doing a workout, and they do the workout in a big open room. And then there's a voiceover of a very relaxed British lady explaining what that person is doing. And so the idea of it's great. So I like put my phone at somewhere where I can see it. I'm like, okay, cool. So this person's going to do a bunch of stretches and I'll feel ready for the day. I'll listen along to the voice. But the thing they haven't thought about is that all of the positions that the lady describes, your eyes aren't straight ahead. So the moment she'll be like, now put your face flat on your rug and stretch your fingertips out. And you're like, cool, you're doing it. And you're like, I can't see the demonstration anymore. So I'm just going to, and then she'll explain like, now roll your shoulders. And you're like, I think I'm doing the right position. And then you cheat by looking up at the screen and you see you're definitely not doing the thing that they're doing. So if anyone is watching through my apartment window and they can see both my phone screen and my body, they know that I'm terrible at following instructions. I had a nice little period of having a friend here in Perth, or having a few friends. The Golding family was here just for a while and hung out with them. And then Jack, he's leaving in a few days, but him and I hung out last night. We went to Gold Class Cinema, or like, what's it called here? Platinum, where it's just a lazy boy and it's very expensive and it feels a bit like a flight lounge. And the lighting's really good. So you pay a bit more money to sort of go into a waiting area, a fancy feeling waiting area, and then you can put your feet up inside the movie, which is good. And it's a nice thing to do on payday. So him and I saw a movie called Nomadland. And I don't know, you might already know about these nomads, but it's a new trend, I think. Well, it's new to me. I think it's been happening for like 10 years, where people who have retired. So before I tell you about the movie, I'll tell you what the thing is. So in real life, you can be, if you're old, you can choose, hey, I want to be a nomad now. And I think the requirements to be a nomad is you have to not be working. And then and this is the part, so that you choose, okay, I'm not working, I'm going to be a nomad. And then the next bit is you go on a road trip instead of just retiring at home. So you go on like a never-ending road trip until your money runs out. But I think it's mostly old people who sell their house and then they just live inside a camper van. So their money won't really run out because they just they bought a house for $40 when they were in World War I, and now they're like, well, I just sold my house for $2 million, so I'll just go on this road trip in a really fancy camper van. And I think in Western Australia, I heard a rumor that because Western Australia is the only place, like if you're here, you're kind of stuck here, kind of like everywhere, but Western Australia is a little bit looser. Apparently Western Australia right now is just full of old people just driving in circles because they can't get across any borders. So like you go out on the streets or the rural streets and there's just camper vans and caravans and just old people doing massive loops with real fat wallets. So this movie is like a sad take on that lifestyle. It's called Nomadland, and it's about she doesn't, like what I described, you'd probably think like 70-year-old, but this lady, I think she's more like, I don't know if it's inappropriate for me to guess at the age of somebody. She's younger than 70, I think, and she looks really good. So she's on a road trip, but her husband has passed away. So for her, the road trip isn't just pure fun. It's like, not in a good place. But she is also, which I think is cool for her, going on a road trip and meeting new people. The movie, I don't know if you've seen these movies I'm going to compare it to, but the movie in its style, I think, is similar to Uncut Gems, which is that Adam Sandler one where he plays the most annoying dude he's ever played, a diamond dealer in New York City. And it also feels like a movie called Good Time with Robert Pattinson. And the reason it feels like that is because it doesn't feel scripted, which is cool because all of the conversations feel more natural, and maybe the way that they did it is not scripted it and just kind of got people to improv for a while. And then that's what it feels like anyway. The conversation's really, really fluid. But there's the only parts where it doesn't feel fluid is when they're talking about Amazon. So the main lady, she works at Amazon every Christmas because I guess it's busy at Amazon, which is just a big factory. She's like stacking boxes onto conveyor belts. And throughout this whole movie, all of the conversations, you can barely hear them because they've made them so natural that you can't tell what they're saying. So it'll be like two really faint voices in the background, like, oh yeah, how long have you been a nomad? How long have you been driving around? Blah, blah, blah. And then the camera will turn to one of the Amazon workers and she'll be like, I love it here. Amazon pays really well. And I think what's happened is Amazon must have funded this movie, and on the condition that that's like a sentence that gets uttered, because there's heaps of footage shown inside the Amazon warehouses, and I think there's like they're having like a bit of a PR crisis. Like they underpay their workers, I think, is a fact. But then this movie comes out, which is like pulling on your heartstrings, and Amazon plays a role in helping to keep this lady employed at certain points in the year. So yeah, great movie and good ad that you put in there as well, Amazon. It was a good spot to choose. I recorded some music recently. Well, I recorded the music over Christmas because I had some time off, but I released that music on Spotify and I'm really proud of it. So if you would like to support the things that I do, if you've made it this far through this episode, then I'm just going to make a sweeping assumption that you are supporting the things that I do, or you want to support them, or you've just watched every other thing and listened to every episode of every podcast that you would normally listen to. Anyway, either way, it would help me a lot if you go into Spotify right now and type in thanks anyway. So I decided on thanks anyway rather than like my name. I was teetering between both, but I think that the idea of a band name means that I can build it out into a band or still play solo. But yeah, so it's called Thanks Anyway. That's the band name. And then will I be able to remember the EP name on the spot right now? I think it's called Each Song is a Sarcastic Wave. Each song is a sarcastic wave to a specific person, is the name of the EP. 3 songs, and my good friend Matt Livingston mixed and mastered those songs. He's the man. Him and I played in a pop punk band called the Dumfries, where like over 10 years ago, and then there was a little bit of crossover in a hardcore band called Upheld, where we probably played like 3 or 4 shows together, but then he made that band, he took it in an awesome direction after I left, not because I was holding them up, but yeah, he's the man, very musically talented, and he did a great job. Those songs, the title of the EP is tongue in cheek, but it felt great to write those songs. Like there's been a few things without naming names. There's been a few things that have happened over the last little while where I've been like, wow. I've given the real Owen Wilson treatment to people who have just really, when a friend really surprises you in a bad way, not in a like, oh, they've given me a present, kind of like, wow, you're capable of that. So rather than just be like gutted or like just put it into your brain as like, well, that's what friends do, so I don't want any, I just kind of decided I'm going to turn that into lyrical content for some songs that kind of sound cheerful on the surface. But yeah, the lyrics are like a chance to like just vent it out, like what a letdown you were in that point and in that moment. So yeah, they felt good to get out of my brain and sing and turn into tunes that I'm really happy with. So yeah, it would be really appreciated if you typed in thanks anyway. Look it up on Spotify, and I think on some phones, it might be Apple only, you can put a love heart on songs or save them to a playlist. Because the way Spotify's like robot brain works is like, if they notice that a bunch of people like a song with that love heart, or if they notice a bunch of people save those songs to their playlists, then Spotify will be like, oh, okay, well, maybe we'll suggest this song to other people. So yeah, it's kind of similar to how social media used to work, with where if something had a bunch of likes on it, then Instagram's robot brain would go, oh, okay, we'll show that to a bunch of other people. So it would help me get my music out there if you just save my songs to playlists. So yeah, that would be much appreciated. And yeah, today's podcast had no guest. So back to very achievable, mediocre goals. I'd been wanting for a while to just do an episode where I don't have a guest, because it's a daunting thought. It might not seem like it to watch, but like it is tougher to run beginning to end without having somebody to rely on as a co-host. And so it's more challenging, but I think that it makes me a better host and a better presenter overall. It kind of like sharpens up your skills, because it's up to you to figure out when to move to the next topic. So it was just something that I wanted to do. And yes, there are people who I've pre-recorded interviews with who are probably like, why did this episode come out and not my one that I recorded a few weeks ago? And don't worry, your episode will come out. Thank you again for listening. I hope that my subpar goal achieving of going to get a coffee from a petrol station inspired you. If you've got anything huge like that, like maybe eat a muffin at a friend's house, or look in the mirror and raise your eyebrows a few times. If you've got goals like that, then keep listening to this podcast, because those are the sort of things that I encourage. Well done, you. Just do it now. Look in your rear vision mirror if you're driving and just give yourself a couple of eyebrow raises. You're doing great.